What is going on, Austin? Zay back with another YouTube video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about if there's going to be another stimulus check. So as you know, people are starting to get their first round, the $1,200 stimulus check, which is a part of the CARES Act that got passed about 4 weeks ago now, okay? People are also starting to get their SBA loans, whether that be the PPP program or the EIDL program. But at the end of the day, there's actually a lot of people that have not received their first round of stimulus checks. The reason that I know that is because I've been looking at all of the comments of a couple of the videos that I have made on stimulus checks, and there's just a bunch of people that are like, Austin, I have not gotten the first $1,200, I have not gotten the SBA loan. Whatever the case is, they don't know why they haven't gotten paid. Maybe they're waiting on their paper check to come into the mail. And there's also a lot of people talking about another round of stimulus. So in today's video, we're going to really dive into, is there actually going to be a second round of stimulus, and what can you really expect to see? We're going to talk about a couple of the different proposals, the different bills that are being proposed, and then the likelihood that one of them actually gets passed, meaning the second round of stimulus. Okay, we're also going to just dive into a couple of different facts and figures of what is currently being proposed on the table, all of the new updates that you can kind of expect to see if you haven't already seen them, obviously. So I would also really appreciate it, okay, if you would smash that like button. It really does help me out with the YouTube algorithm. But let's just go ahead and dive into it. So the SBA loan program actually ran out of its first $350 billion on April 16th, okay, which was basically a very short period of time from when it was actually funded to begin with. So quick that a lot of businesses hadn't even applied yet. I personally have multiple different friends of mine that hadn't even applied yet to get their SBA loan. And ultimately, the fund closed out, it shut down. It was out of money, essentially, okay? So that's kind of my first update for you. Then we've seen a ton of videos on this $2,000 a month stimulus, which would essentially entail $2,000 a month for about 225 million Americans. This was a huge deal considering the requirements to qualify for that proposed bill would have actually been way less strict than the qualifications for the initial CARES Act. There was a lot of people in that initial CARES Act that actually didn't qualify. We've also seen headlines about the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act, and there's been a bunch of videos on that. There's been a bunch of people talking about that, obviously, which is where, and we'll dive into it in just a minute in a very brief kind of overview, but in a nutshell, where they would actually cancel rent and mortgages for up to a year. One more update really quick, and that is that last month, as you know, the president signed that $2.2 trillion CARES Act, okay? And that funded that initial wave, right, where everybody got the $1,200 check. Not everybody, but you know what I mean. And that actually was the SBA loan program. It was big corporation bailouts. It was all sorts of different funding for basically, essentially everybody, but obviously everybody didn't get it, okay? Everybody didn't benefit from that. And on April 24th, the president signed a $484 billion bill to aid small businesses. So that was another bill that actually did get passed as well. And that those funds were actually dispersed to multiple different places like hospitals and small businesses and different things like that. Also like testing to find a cure for the coronavirus. Okay, so pretty much that is kind of all the updates I have for you. Let's dive in to the different proposed bills just real briefly, and then what are the odds that one of them actually gets passed, and will you see another stimulus? So really quick on that $2,000 a month proposed bill, a lot of people have been talking about it. People haven't been talking as much about this proposal, I guess, recently, so we'll just briefly cover, but essentially, like I said, 225 million Americans would qualify based on the proposal. So when you actually read the proposal, that is just doing some simple math, okay? You'd have to be 16 years or older. Dependents would qualify too, which obviously dependents didn't qualify in the initial round of stimulus, okay? It also includes high school students, it includes college students, adults with disabilities, and other adults claimed as dependents. Also, you'd have to just essentially make less than $130,000 a year as a single person, or less than $260,000 as a couple or a household, okay? And basically, you would get $2,000 a month or $4,000 a month if you were a couple, and then $500 per child for up to 3 children. That, in a nutshell, was that proposal, okay? Now, those payments would have all been tax-free, which just kind of wrapping it up here a little bit. And you would not have to report any of that as income on your taxes moving forward. There's a lot of people that would qualify for the $2,000 a month bill that was proposed that they don't make that normally, right? They don't make that in normal time. So in my opinion, with that proposal, there were a lot of holes. There were a lot of things that it would just needed to be ironed out a little bit and massaged a little bit. But again, that is just my opinion. I'm overall fairly neutral on a lot of this, by the way. I just kind of want to cover it all. I do think that most of the proposals would need to be ironed out, right? And that is kind of the process of how all this works anyways. Just one other thing to note on that, and that is if you are currently receiving unemployment, disability, or any type of other government assistance, you would actually still qualify for the extra $2,000 on top of whatever you were already getting. So another interesting thing to just kind of keep in mind. And lastly, this applies to non-residents of the United States under certain qualifications. So that in a nutshell was the $2,000 a month proposal, okay? Basically how all this works is, behind the scenes when a bill like this gets proposed, just to kind of update you, you probably already know this, right? But it will approach the Senate. Okay, if the Senate agrees, then it will be passed along to the president. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that happen, before any of that happens. But just to kind of keep it all tight and in a nutshell, once it reaches the president, he will then have to make a decision whether to sign it or not. If the president rejects it, then it gets essentially sent back to the Senate. Okay, and if 2/3 of the Senate agrees, then it will still pass and it will actually overrule the president's rejection. It's just kind of in a nutshell how something like this actually works. It does actually take a little bit of time for things like this to get passed, regardless of the bill that we're talking about. So a lot of members of Congress actually agree that a second round of stimulus checks are necessary, okay? I've been reading a bunch of articles, just listening to all the news, all the media. And recently, actually, a group of 62 congressional leaders, including former presidential candidates, Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders, signed a letter urging Congress to consider monthly payments. Okay, so look, this is politics. I don't do politics, okay, personally. This is a YouTube channel where I talk about personal finance, the stock market, real estate, just things of that nature, like mindset, stuff like that. But overall, I talk about the basic fundamental principles to become successful, right? To live a better life, to save more money, to invest more money. I don't get involved in politics. I just wanted to update people on the stimulus stuff, just due to the fact that it is a big deal right now. And we're going to dive into it a little bit more. So definitely stay till the end of the video, okay? I really appreciate it. So other GOP members have been very reluctant on doing another stimulus bill. And the reason really for that, from their perspective, is that they're just reluctant, right? They don't want to give more money until they kind of do studies of how much the money that has already been given has actually helped. And again, that can kind of be a slap in the face if you haven't got any money yet. So if you're watching this video and you haven't even received the first check and you need it, right? You need it to pay for your food, your car payment, your mortgage, your rent, whatever, then that can definitely be a kind of a slap in the face. There's just a lot going on, right? There's a lot of back and forth. So, okay, real quick, another proposal, keep this one real short. Senator and 2012 Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney recently proposed a program called Patriot Pay, if you're familiar with Patriot Pay, and this was intended to be a way for workers in those frontline industries and essential jobs, right, to get a temporary pay bump during this pandemic. Patriot Pay would give up to $12 an hour on top of normal wages for employees in eligible jobs, okay? And again, these are the frontline workers you hear about, right? Industries that, Congress and Department of Labor qualify as essential, such as hospitals, grocery store workers, health, manufacturing, all these different things. Essential workers is a proposal. It's called Patriot Pay. It would actually give everybody a bonus, right? The heroes, the American heroes that are out there right now serving the country and making everything possible so that the economy doesn't totally shut down. As far as the details of this proposal, the temporary pay bump would essentially extend through May, June, and July, and would be paid out by employers and the federal government via a payroll tax credit. That is another proposal that they've proposed. Look, there's been a ton of proposals. The Patriot Pay, I actually like the Patriot Pay. Again, I don't really have much of an opinion on any of this. I try to stay very neutral, but I like Patriot Pay because those are our frontline workers. Those are people that are risking their life to keep the economy on some level open right now, right? I think it would be really cool to see those people actually get rewarded for that, okay? So I like that one. Let's jump into one more proposal, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up. And that is, this has kind of been discussed, and we've talked about it on my channel. That is the Free Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act. And again, with this bill, basically everybody is eligible. It doesn't matter, if you pay $600 a month or $6,000 a month in your rent or mortgage. There's really no qualification level. And if this bill were to take place, it would actually take place retroactively, and the effective date would have started March 13th of 2020, and it would be effective for up to a year. Okay, so essentially an entire year. It would only apply to your primary residence, okay? It would not apply to your third home in Aspen, Colorado. And essentially, homeowners would have no mortgage, no fees, no fines for non-payment. If you were a renter, the same would apply, right? You didn't have to pay rent, no fines, no fees for non-payment, and you're not liable for the repayment of any unpaid rent, and it wouldn't affect your credit score. So that is another proposal that we've seen a ton of people talk about. So Section 4, really quick, of that proposed bill is the Landlord Relief Fund, which just takes care of the landlords. It's actually kind of the ugly part of that bill. The landlords do essentially get screwed, in my opinion, in that bill. They've got to follow a bunch of rules and regulations for the next 5 years if they choose to opt into that act, okay, that bill. Essentially, you'd have to qualify, you'd have to agree. There's a bunch of rules and regulations that they would have to abide by that, in my opinion, it would kind of be a pain in the butt. If they did not follow the rules and regulations, they would get fined and stuff like that. But I'll save that for another video. Look, overall, it does seem highly likely that one of a couple of different things happen. If you're still watching to the end of the video, I really appreciate it. Again, if you would just smash the like button, okay? We do actually talk about a bunch of valuable content on this channel, even when the crazy times in the world are not happening, such as personal finance, just investing in real estate, the stock market, and just different things that are overall really good for really anybody to learn and to absorb and to apply to their life. So I would really appreciate that. But, look, again, 49% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So, the $1,200 CARES Act stimulus check was not a lot of money for most people, right? In my opinion, okay, again, I do want to stay fairly neutral, but I know a lot of people that have not gotten the $1,200, and the people that did, that live in New York City or they live in other places, it's not a lot of money, right? What does $1,200 actually get you? There's a lot of proposals, and from everything that I'm looking at, basically, they're gonna have to do something, right? They're going to have to either open back up the economy, or there's essentially got to be another round of money, because you can't keep the economy closed and not have more stimulus, right? And I know the Fed, they came in and they said, there was a press conference, and I don't want to get into a bunch of details, but they talked about, essentially unlimited debt, right? Unlimited money, okay? That they'll be pumping into the economy. So there's just a lot going on right now, but you've got to reopen the economy. You've got to have another round of stimulus. You've got to do one or the other. And that is kind of my thoughts. What bill would it be? I don't know. I don't know that it would be any of those bills. I think the Patriot Pay is actually really cool. I like the Patriot Pay one. The $2,000 a month one, to me, seems very unrealistic. It's just a ton of, it's like $2.6 trillion. And the free rent and mortgage, it just needs to be tidied up a little bit, in my opinion. I don't know. I think there'll probably be a lot more proposals, and we'll see. Maybe the economy will start to reopen. I know that they've tried doing that in certain areas, and there was also negative effects of that even. So look, stay tuned, right? Watch the news, take care of yourself and your family, and make sure that you do anything possible to to make sure that you're good, okay? I would recommend that if you're not already, start going online, whether it be my channel or somebody else's channel, and figure out how to make money online. Figure out how to sell things on eBay. Figure out how to ultimately take care of your family if you're out of a job. There are a lot of ways to make money online. There are a lot of ways to make, $100 or $200 or $300 a day where, you don't have to actually leave your living room. So I would really encourage you to check that out, to subscribe to my channel or somebody else's channel where they talk about, very simple, practical methods of actually making money online. I think that would be a really good start to kind of, I guess hanging in there while the government and everybody does what it is that they're doing, which is essentially proposing a bunch of bills, fighting like crazy, and it doesn't seem like they're making a ton of progress, or at least not very quickly. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's video, that you got some sort of value from today's video, and drop in the comment section down below. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like. If you want to see more of these, if you want me to go back to making my normal content and never make one of these again, I would appreciate it if you'd let me know. And until then, I'll see you in the next video.